presenting this session. Our subtitle is The Hidden Costs of Managing or Mismanaging Open Source. Let's quickly review our agenda and look at logistics. Very briefly talk about what we here at WhiteSource do. I will then deep dive into the open source usage practices survey that we've conducted very recently, and after which I will try to review the results and some of the analysis that we've done and maybe reach some conclusions. And I will then briefly discuss ways of automating open source management and sort of trying to mitigate potential risks and cutting down the hidden costs aforementioned. If time permits, I will show a demo of the WhiteSource system, and if we have even extra time, we'll do a brief questions and answers session. If you have any answers during this session, please type them in the control bar. There are quite a few participants, so we can't open the microphone up for everyone. And we will try to address all your questions at the end, and if we don't manage to, we'll send detailed answers via email. So let's briefly talk about what we do here at WhiteSource. As you probably already know, open source is wonderful. It's very widely used by all software vendors, commercially and otherwise. It's the only way to realistically stay competitive in today's market, and you don't want to be reinventing the wheel every time you want to add some functionality to your system. However, there are a few issues that eat away at the benefit that open source brings with it to R&D teams, and the top three that we here at WhiteSource identify are security and quality issues, license risk and compliance issues, and the ineffective manual management of the top two and open source usage in general when it's being managed manually. And our solution aims to bridge that gap and bring back the full value of open source into the hands of the developers, letting them fully enjoy the benefits without the security issues, without compliance exposure, without wasting their time, and at a very affordable price, using our automated tool that can plug into any agile modern development lifecycle. And with that, let's dive into our usage survey. First of all, a little bit administration. The survey was run at the bottom of Q1 of 2014. We've had over 120 software professionals participate from over 100 different companies, primarily R&D managers at various seniority levels, including CTOs, VP, and directors, several information security managers, CSIOs, and so on, legal experts and legal consuls at those companies, and compliance officers. And we actually had a wide range of company sizes and types, so there's good representation here for both large enterprise corporations as well as smaller or medium-sized independent software vendors. And now for the results. So the first and most interesting question I think that we've had in the survey is, do you even manage your open source usage as a software development team? And we see that just a quarter of participants do not do anything to manage their open source usage, but a little over half manage it manually, and the others have either a homegrown tool or some dedicated tracking software to do it. What this means to me is that most companies, or a very large majority of companies, really want to manage their open source usage. So 74% spend time and resources, sometimes even money directly or indirectly, to try and ensure that they are properly using open source and that they have regulated processes for open source adoption. And a little over 20% are explicitly spending money on it, either internally by paying developers to develop a homegrown tool, or externally by purchasing software and tools to do that. And this means to me that tracking and managing open source usage is important to software vendors in general. However, managing open source is not a straightforward task. It actually is somewhat complicated and difficult. We find in our survey that most companies, 53%, don't really know at a given point in time what open source components go into their software, which is actually kind of strange when you think about it. But there are very good reasons for that, and I'll touch on that later. Another close to 30% only produce an inventory once every few months, normally before a major release. And this means that throughout the development lifecycle, they don't know what's going in. And from our experience, a very large part of the time, even that one-off inventory produced every release isn't comprehensive or isn't very accurate. And a small minority of companies become aware of new open source libraries as soon as they are introduced by developers. And even those tend to burden the developers and force them to report when they want to introduce those new libraries. Having said that, enforcing your policy is even a much more difficult task than just managing it. 75% of the companies don't have a clear adoption policy from a licensing perspective. Again, a small minority, under 10%, have automated tools to enforce the policy, which basically means that 90% sort of try to enforce whatever policy they may or may not have manually. When it comes to security, 74% don't have a process for knowing about security vulnerabilities that are found in components that they are already using, and only 13.5% react to issues when they are told about it. And even a smaller amount try to actively look for security vulnerabilities in their open source components. So this means that basically a large majority of companies, even though they would like to have a good handle on their open source usage, are having a very hard time doing so. When asked how your open source is tracked, overwhelmingly it's being done by manual work from the R&D associates, the developers, and only in small part is it done centrally by the organization. This means that a lot of companies don't really have managerial visibility or consistent governance of their open source usage. As seen in the graph, 81% of the companies leave open source management in the hands of the developers, which means that one, they are getting fairly poor results, and two, they are wasting a lot of their developers' precious time. And just a minority of the companies have a central policy or repository or oversight on this issue. And after reviewing the survey data, I will now try to derive some conclusions. First and foremost, I think it's fairly easy to see that on the most part, open source is mismanaged by software vendors, large and small. Most companies still rely on resource-intensive manual processes performed by R&D team members, developers, or DevOps guys. And this results in a lot of costs which are relatively hidden, and exposes the company to a wide range of security vulnerabilities which can cause in turn even greater potential costs or open the company up to various risks. So let me now try and sort of name those hidden costs. First, and I think the most costly resource here is the time and effort spent by individual developers trying to keep track on their open source usage, trying to monitor and report on the open source components that they are using as part of their development projects. Another article here is the delays to release schedules and go to market, which can cost you eventually customers or losing to competition, and not to mention wasted other resources in the company, marketing and sales and otherwise. It can open the company up to various legal risks that can result in costly lawsuits and compromise the company's reputation. In general, finding problematic libraries late in the process, for example, when you want to go out to release, can result in very large R&D costs trying to then pull out the problematic component and replacing it with a new component or with a proprietary code that then needs to be retested, do some more QA work, more integration work, more wrapping, whatever needs to be done in that company in order to release a version. And finally, fixing security issues when your product is already out and you've been a victim to some attack is dramatically more expensive than preventing those issues from ever entering your code via the compromised open source components. Overall, I think it's very plain to see that these amount to a lot of costs, direct and potential costs to the software vendors who are unfortunately normally hidden. They are not taken into account when calculating the run rate of the company. So, you know, open source is widely considered as free. It can be free when properly managed, but as we've seen, it can also be very expensive when it's mismanaged. Mismanagement costs are almost always indirect and very hard to track, but can eventually reach dramatic burden on the company's budget or resources. Fortunately, there is a much better way. Generally speaking, open source can and should be tracked automatically. You should have some sort of tool to track your real inventory and not what's being reported by developers, to help you know about issues before they are released and before they become problematic issues out in the market, security, legal, and otherwise, and not waste your developers' precious time doing either of the above. And here at WhiteSource, not surprisingly, we offer a tool for automating open source management. And we provide a cloud-based software as a service solution with our own continuously updated knowledge base of both licensing and security issues. We keep updating our databases with new projects as soon as they go out. We integrate normally with the build tool in the development lifecycle. So we have a wide range of out-of-the-box plugins that can automatically report on the inventory with all of the dependencies, and the WhiteSource service would then know to let you or help you track your usage and your potential issues and risks. There is zero burden on the development team. The entire thing is completely automatic and doesn't require any manual intervention. It provides you back with current reports, up-to-date reports, you know, as soon as you like, as much as you like. Basically, we watch your back for you and provide you proactive alerts on security issues as soon as they come up or as soon as the developer is adding a problematic library. Very, very simple, very, very easy, and works for all types of organizations, large and small, and and everything in the middle, all the SMBs. For security and quality issues, what we do is we connect with public repositories of known security vulnerabilities in open source components, and we have a system for matching those vulnerabilities against specific open source libraries in specific versions, so you will only get reports on the actual vulnerabilities that impact your components, the ones that you are using. We proactively alert when we find those vulnerabilities to be existed in your open source code base, and we can let you know when new versions of those libraries go out into the market and can fix or resolve those issues. For licensing and compliance, as mentioned, most companies have a very wide gap between what they think they are using and what they are actually using. We can very easily close that gap by reporting on the full inventory of the components with their dependencies and the licenses of those dependencies, and have an automated policy system to enforce the organizational policy seamlessly and without any burden to the R&D team whatsoever. So how it's done, we have a set of plugins to all the popular build tools, including Maven, Ant, Gradle, Jenkins, TiVCity, Bamboo, and others, that can be installed in 5 minutes, and from that point on, they would synchronize the content of the open source inventory in your various projects with our online service, and be able to provide you with real-time notifications about problematic libraries or potentially risky libraries that developers are trying to introduce, and are even capable of failing the build when a library does not comply with your organizational policy. So you can set, I'll show a demo in a minute, you can set up policies to dictate the adoption decisions of open source libraries in your organization, and those decisions will automatically be enforced by our policy system. And with that, I would like to show you a demo of what our system actually looks like. Let's connect to our server. So as mentioned, it's a cloud-based software as a service solution. So everything is consumed through a browser, just a normal web browser. And basically you get a set of dashboards and reports that let various individuals see different aspects of the information of your open source content. What we're looking at right now is the main dashboard, or the organizational dashboard, that they're divided into 3 parts. The top part is the alerts, which I'll get back to in a second. The middle part is a mini inventory broken down into products. So if your company has several products, you'll see them listed here with their open source libraries and licenses, and a breakdown of risk factors for those licenses, which I will also get back to. And at the bottom, currently it's empty, but if there were any ongoing workflows for approving libraries that don't match any of the policies, you would see them here. So basically, first line of defense is the policies, the predefined policies that exist in your organization. But every now and again, a library may come up that doesn't match any of your predefined policies, and that library would need some manual intervention, some person to decide what he wants to do with it, and then our system would open up some ticket and start a workflow around it to resolve that issue. When we look at the library page, you can see various information provided by our system, including the dependencies, the versions, newer or older versions than the one that's being used, the home page where the code is, and the license. And if you drill into the license, you see that what we've done for the OSI licenses is we've done some legal analysis on the 7 risk factors of open source, including copyright, copyleft, and others. So this is not a replacement for legal advice, but if you would like to get some basic understanding of what the license is about, it gives you a pretty good picture. If I now go back to the alert section, you'll see that we, once the system knows what the inventory is made up of, it can start providing insight into that inventory, including notification about newer versions that are already out into the market, alerting you when you are using different versions of the same library in your projects, security vulnerabilities, and policy rejections. And for security vulnerabilities, we of course have a designated report that lists all of them in one centralized place that lets you sort them by severity and then decide on the priority in which you want to deal with them. For each of them, you can drill down and get some more information, including the full description, some more details on its severity, what your exposure is. So if this problematic library appears in more than one project, you'll see it here, and references to potential fixes, workarounds, or upgrades. And you can even drill all the way down and get the original CVE for those of you who know what that means. We of course provide with additional reports, including the basic inventory report. That's just a flat list of the libraries with a short description, a license, and its occurrences in various projects. And with a click of a button, you can export this report to an Excel spreadsheet and then share with your legal consul, or with a partner, or a large customer, or investor, or whoever you need to share this information with. And there are a few other reports that give different aspects of the information. Our policy system provides several types of policies, but the two basic types are a blacklist and whitelist of licenses. So basically what you can do, and for our example, we don't like the GPL family of licenses, so we define a new policy, base it on a license family, add the list of GPL type licenses to our blacklist, and then mark them to be rejected. Corollarily, we can select, I don't know, the BSD family, mark them, and then signal the system that we want to approve them, and basically build our policy to cover as many types of licenses as possible, so we would only be left with a very thin gray area that would ever require manual intervention, that would ever require someone, a person, to log into the system and then review the library with the unknown license or with the new license, get some more information on it, where it comes from, the home page, the dependencies, versions, and so on, and make an educated decision on whether or not that library is okay in the organization. And basically, you get full enforcement of your adoption policy, so you're never left with any manual work or with sort of blind spots in your code base regarding the open source components that are being used. I think this covers the basic functionality of our service. So let's just go back and quickly summarize what we know. So in terms of our value proposition, we said that open source is wonderful, but its value is marred by security issues, license risk, and compliance issues, and laborious manual management of the above two. Our service can very easily be integrated into existing agile development lifecycle processes. It's very proactive in alerting you on security issues and possible fixes and new versions, automatically enforce organizational licensing policies, and does so while taking away the burden from the R&D team and reducing the hidden costs that we've seen as part of the survey that we've conducted. So just to conclude, we've seen that a very large majority of software vendors have a vested interest in managing their open source usage, are already investing time and resources trying to somehow manage it, mostly manually, but are currently getting very, very poor results and are wasting a lot of their either developer time or money expenditure on developing homegrown tools or purchasing ineffective management software. Fortunately, there is a better way, and software vendors can and should use automated tracking tools to manage their use of open source and mitigate potential risks before they become serious problems, either legal or security. And with that, I would like to conclude our session for today. We will gather your question and send you follow-up emails, including full results of the survey we've conducted to anyone who's interested. I thank you all for your time and attention, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.